Okay, so I'm just gonna say this right off the bat. I have no idea what I'm doing with these predictions. As we go more and more along, a lot of these categories are really, really tricky to figure out. And also, I'm trying to make a movie at the same time, which is not easy, but just bear with me. I'm gonna try and get through this, because we're getting closer to the Oscars and closer to filming. And at least I have this to take my mind off the other thing. But then again, maybe my mind shouldn't be taken off the other thing. Maybe I should be focusing more, because if I procrastinate, it's all gonna. I'm sorry. This is Oscar predictions. I'm not. Like, you are my YouTube audience. You are not my therapist. Okay, but I am concerned. So if you can send some good thoughts my way. Best sound editing. That's what we're talking about today. Best sound editing, and I have quite a lot to say about this category. And I'm gonna try something different in that I'm gonna try and play actual audio clips from the movies themselves, just so you can get a feel of what we're talking about in this category. So, sound editing. For those of you who don't know, the two categories of the Oscars: sound editing and sound mixing. Sound editing refers to the creation of sound effects in the film, whereas sound mixing involves taking those sound effects and the score and the dialogue and mixing it together in a way so that everything can be heard clearly. So the two things are different, but at the same time, part of me wonders if they should just have one category, because it's difficult for a lot of people to tell the difference, especially last year when it was the same 5 movies nominated across both categories and the same winner. So with that being said, let's just get straight into the nominees for Best Sound Editing. 5th most likely to win is Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, go on, roll the tape.
Overdub 24 of Fred's thing.
How was that? Better?
Higher.
Jesus, how many more Galileos do you want?
Freddie wants to do a few more overdubs.
Do we even have any tape left?
I do have to say, the tape is wearing out.
So, I still have yet to see this movie. I'm going to try and see it as soon as I can. But sound editing, I really, really don't think it's going to win there. I think it got the sound editing nomination here just to prove that the film has legs and that it can do well in other categories. But in this category, I don't know. I feel like when people think of the movie, they'll think of it in sound mixing, because there's songs, and musicals do well in this category, usually. I mean, La La Land lost, so maybe there's the tide is turning on that. But even when musicals do well in sound mixing, they tend not even to be nominated for sound editing, La La Land being the exception. And usually when they do get that extra nomination, all they're really trying to say is, we're going to give it an extra nomination just to show that we really like the movie and we want it to do well in other categories. So I can't imagine Bohemian Rhapsody actually walks away with this one. I feel like people respect it enough to give it the nomination, but in terms of a win, there are definitely better choices. 4th most likely to win is Roma. So I tried to put together a list of Oscar predictions for the nominations, and I ended up giving up halfway through because it was just taking too long and it was tiring. But in my predictions for sound editing, I don't think Roma was in the top 40. Like, it might not even have been in the top 100. Like, it was just so far back, I didn't think it had a chance. I'm like, okay, Best Picture movie, but it's not. I mean, what sound editing is there in the movie? And now looking back at the clip, I can kind of see where they're coming from. But I think because the movie feels so much like a documentary, you don't think of it in terms of sound editing. So there's probably a lot of great invisible work going into it that we just don't notice. But I think the real reason this was nominated was because this was such a big Best Picture player. And that's why it showed up everywhere. Because the movie has serious legs and it's going to do really well in a lot of other categories. But this, I feel, was just overkill. They didn't need to nominate it for Best Sound Editing. Even if you loved the movie, I don't know how many people thought it had some of the best sound editing of the year, at least in terms of the top 5. Like, how many would actually nominate it? And even if some of those people do exist, how many people are actually going to vote for this number 1? Maybe if they love the movie, which they clearly do. But if people love the movie enough that they're like, I'm going to vote for this in absolutely every category, then maybe it can get enough votes. But I just don't think... I think a lot of people, even if they loved Roma and are going to vote for it and everything, when they get to sound editing, they're like, oh, it doesn't need to get sound editing. I can see someone voting for Roma in sound mixing, but sound editing feels like such a long shot. Sound editing, usually they go to movies that are big and loud, and Roma is not really a loud movie. It has set pieces, like in the clip I showed you, but there are other movies that are louder. Beginning with, ironically enough, number 3 most likely to win, A Quiet Place. So, A Quiet Place is, in my opinion, one of the best movies of the year, and it was good enough that it should have earned a Best Picture nomination. But if it's going to be nominated anywhere, this is where it makes sense to nominate it. It is a very, very good film, and so much of it hinges on the sound design. Even though I would argue maybe the sound mixing might have a little bit more to do with it, the sound editing is clearly very good. And there's something about working in minimalism that when you take a lot of the sound away, there's something about this idea of working in minimalism that director John Krasinski was able to take a lot of the sound away during much of the movie, and then when sound does happen, it's all the more important and it's all the more impactful and it's all the more noticeable, which is why it got this nomination. And it's a very worthy nomination for a very worthy film, but I can't imagine it's going to have enough support to win. This is the sole nomination for the movie. That means it's the only place people can vote for it, but I wouldn't completely rule out a win. I think a win is possible, but given the fact that they didn't like the movie enough to nominate it in other places, I feel that this is just their way of being like, okay, we're going to nominate this one popular movie. Like, sometimes you'll get it, like Sully or Drive. A movie that did really well with other critics groups only gets the sound editing nomination, or even sound mixing. The sound categories can be a good way to give a nomination to a film that they didn't want to nominate anywhere else. And the nomination is worthy, and the win, if it happened, would be worthy, but I just don't think they loved the movie enough to award it over some of these more conventional winners. But with that being said, it is possible. Second most likely to win is First Man. So this could be your winner. They do love their space movies in this category, and the sound design in this film is clearly very good. I don't know how a lot of it was done. I don't know how much of it was practical, how much of it was captured on set, but it's undeniably great work. But I don't know. It's not a Best Picture nominee, which is troublesome, but the sound design does stand out, and clearly movies have shown in the past that they don't need to be Best Picture nominees to win here. The movie does have a lot of support, and it is a loud movie that has some nice, balanced, quiet moments. I can see them wanting to award the movie somewhere, but I don't think they do it here. Or they'd either do it here, or in sound mixing, or in... Oh wait, it's not nominated for editing. Oh, in visual effects. Visual effects, it could happen. But I don't know. I feel... Okay, this is one of those races that to me is kind of a two-horse race. And First Man, I think, could very easily win, but I think you can make a stronger case for another nominee. And so I'm just going to cut to that chase. The movie that I think is number one most likely to win, the most likely my predicted winner, is Black Panther.
Right, let's have some fun.
So, the way I see it, Black Panther has to win something, and this is probably the easiest place to give it a win. I feel that no one's going to object to this winning, and it's an easy win because it's a loud movie with a lot of big sound effects, but it's also a Best Picture nominee that everyone likes, and people want to see it get an award somewhere. So I don't know what the stats of this are with precursors. I don't know how they track precursors for these things, but I feel that the sound design is going to be pretty hard to ignore in Black Panther when people look at these nominees in terms of sound editing, because sound editing is the sound effects and sound mixing is the blending. I feel that it's going to be hard to ignore the sound effects in Black Panther, because they're like big CGI set pieces with a bunch of sounds that quite obviously could not have been captured on set and must have been added in later. And a lot of times in these awards, people confuse best sound editing with most sound editing. That happens in a lot of the tech awards. People can confuse best with most. And I think this probably has the most sound editing. Or, I mean, First Man and A Quiet Place also have very good sound design, and both of those movies do a great job of mixing in the loud moments with the quieter moments. Of the 5 movies, Black Panther is probably the loudest. And I feel like that's going to help win. There's also the fact that Black Panther is a Best Picture nominee and First Man is not. Black Panther is a very, very well-liked film. I feel like this is the obvious choice in this category, and I could be wrong. I could see a world where First Man or A Quiet Place pulls off an upset win. But Black Panther is what I feel is most likely to win, and I'm going to stick with my gut. My official prediction in this category is Black Panther, and that's the end of my prediction. I'm sorry, I was going for something cooler there, but I gotta get back to work figuring out how this movie's gonna happen. So, actually, I've got to edit this first and then publish it, and by the time you're seeing this, I'll probably be working on the movie already, so, or maybe not, maybe I'll take some time off. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sorry. You don't care about the movie, you care about the Oscar predictions. I'm just rambling at this point. I don't care. Black Panther is probably going to win sound editing. Thank you very much for watching this video. I will have another prediction video up tomorrow. And see you later. Goodbye.